Have you ever seen the first movie that George Lucas ever directed?
Well, if you haven't, this video's for you.
And now it's time for some fun.
And villainy. So Logan, to put you on the spot, do you remember what the first thing you ever did with Chatter Squadron was?
I do, yeah. I know we briefly did a THX podcast, but I also remember I did this whole, I looked down and you were playing this character that was basically just a lifelike version of you. You didn't seem to change much, but I was really grossed out for some reason. I was like, oh, this guy's weird, which actually is pretty realistic to what I normally...
No, because I was a nerd in that sketch.
Yeah, you are a nerd. That's what
let's just get back to the 1138 thing.
You were playing a nerd? Oh, you were doing a character.
Yeah.
Oh.
That was not mostly based off of me.
Right.
Yeah.
And I knew that. And I knew that, and that was my motivation to be grossed out of your character, not of you.
Do you look at me often and get grossed out?
No.
Look at me and say no.
No.
Okay, we'll get back to that. But THX 1138 was one of the first things we did when you were a part of Chatter Squadron with our one of our old co-hosts, Mike Calhoun.
Right.
We all watched it. And then we did a podcast where we gave a deep dive into that film. So if you want a deep dive into that film, you can listen to that. Maybe I'll find it and put it in the description. But this is kind of more of a crash course on what the heck was 1138. You know what I mean? Because if some people haven't watched the entire thing or even seen clips of it, people talk about THX 1138 all the time. People see THX when that
What movie do you think of when you see that?
Star Wars.
Really?
Yeah.
I think of Twister every time. Hands down, every time that comes
got
out.
it. We got it.
No!
I don't think anyone else got it. But this is kind of just to give you a little bit of an idea. And THX 1138 was actually I was going to say a fan film. It was a student film by George Lucas. And the name of it is...
Electronic Labyrinth.
Yeah, Electronic Labyrinth, THX 1138, 4EB. And that was made in 1967 while George was attending USC School of Cinematic Arts. But when it was going to be made a cinematic feature, THX 1138 was just shortened to that, and it was actually produced by Francis Ford Coppola, who directed The Godfather as well as many other things, and it was a part of a deal with Warner Brothers where they financed it and they produced it.
I'm The Godfather.
I'm THX.
I'm THX.
I'm gonna break your kneecaps.
I'm gonna break...
I'm one of those security guys.
What did they do to my boys?
The boys? Wasn't it just one?
Oh, yeah. Right.
What are they doing to my boys? He doesn't have his glasses on. He's seeing multiple boys. Anyway, this whole experience, though, with working with Warner Brothers kind of is what started putting George off with the whole Hollywood and producers and everything.
Yeah. He came in with, I'm sure Francis Ford Coppola was really vouching for George. This guy, he's got a lot of good, and then they, the studio sees the finished product and they're like, Francis!
What is this movie? Because this movie is very, there's a lot of symbolism.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of spoken, dialogue in the sense of guiding you through what's going on. It's very much like things happen, and then you're supposed to glean what that means off of just seeing visuals, basically.
Yeah.
And to give you a better idea, here's a synopsis of the film to kind of bring you in onto what the story is. In the 21st century, sexual intercourse and reproduction are prohibited, whereas use of mind-altering drugs is mandatory to enforce compliance among the citizens and to ensure their ability to conduct dangerous and demanding tasks. Emotions, coitus, and the concept of family are taboo.
Everyone is clad in identical uniforms that has shaven heads to emphasize equality. Except the police androids who wear black and robed monks. Instead of names, people have designations with 3 arbitrary letters, referred to as the prefix, and 4 digits shown on an identity badge worn at all times.
At all times.
It's spooky.
So speaking, for some reason that part of the synopsis was spooky. Ooh, monks.
Ooh, numbers.
The numbers and what he was talking about is where THX 1138 comes from, where the titular character played by
Robert Duvall,
one of his first main roles.
coming off The Rain People.
Yeah, whatever that movie is, or TV show, whatever it was.
Yeah.
But no, he is named THX 1138, the main character in this movie. So I know it's hard to kind of grasp what that would look like, the synopsis that we just said. Like, what would a film with all that look like? But not much of that is...
No, even if you watch the film, you still don't know what that would look like.
Because to give an example of this movie, we've said it before, it might have been even in that podcast, whereas this movie doesn't doesn't spoon feed you anything.
No.
It doesn't even give you a spoon. That's the
No.
problem. You want to kind of be fed a couple things, but it's just sort of like, here's the meal over there. Just kind of look at it, and then you're supposed to understand what it is.
Right.
Which, once again, it's a new filmmaker with George at this point. So maybe he had a lot of these big concepts, but he didn't necessarily know how to bring it all to fruition.
Well, you know, George does say that. He will always say, like, he makes movies that he enjoys for himself. And it just so happens that other people also tend to enjoy them.
Right.
And this is one of the ones that he made for himself that maybe people didn't enjoy so much.
And like we said, we're not going into like a major synopsis with this film, but one of the biggest things that we do need to talk about is probably the most shocking part of this movie, which is, once again, this is back in the day, not the biggest production value of all time. The budget was a lot of sevens. We'll get to that in a second. But there wasn't many special effects they could work with. So during a chase scene, that's right, there is a chase scene at the end of the movie.
The whole second half of the movie
Yeah,
is one big chase scene.
One of those guards, who is obviously played by an actual human, not an android, is on a motorcycle and does a practical stunt which goes slightly awry. So spoiler warning for THX 1138 while I spit THX 1138.
Spoiler.
But also kind of a content warning, because you might see, and we're going to react to this right now, that this guy might almost die. I'll just put it like that.
Okay, so here we go, and we're bringing it full screen.
So there, what, you can see him there in the middle,
Coming
takes
in.
off, and
Whoa!
choke, and
Yo!
it's shocking every time I see it, because it's just so I mean, if you remember when we first watched it, I literally got out of my seat and I was like, oh my gosh.
Well, because you know, that's the thing. You know, for the time, you know that that's not, they can't rig up something. Like, it's a real person.
That's a real person.
And we're going to do it again. Okay, there he is. He's looking, and he's coming in hot.
And that's where it all goes wrong.
Oh, and he let go, and...
Oh, you know,
he gets pinned between the bike and the car.
And the whole car moves.
It moves.
Well, to give more of a background on that, in what would that be called? A documentary for THX 1138. They actually talk about this moment, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they talk about the fact that apparently apparently the stuntman, this is exactly what he wanted, because there was other people working on the film that said the day of shooting the stunt, you know, in the tunnel, famous tunnel, I don't know the name of it, but they were like, yeah, the ramp looked a little high, you know, and there was a bunch of people that were like, I don't know, and they said, like, this is what he wanted. The
stuntman?
Yeah, this apparently.
They're putting a lot of words in the stuntman's mouth of like, listen, we made the ramp real high, but the stuntman was like, I like it this way.
Well, that's the thing, is you don't hear from the stuntman in the documentary. He is nowhere to be found.
Yeah, you don't hear from Duffy Hamilton. You hear of other people talking about it. And apparently when this crash happened, because George, in the lead up, right, he tells him like, hey, just lay still after the crash. And he's like, no problem. Have you seen the ramp? I'm going to be laying real still.
Yeah, almost too still.
Yeah.
When
the crash happens, George, you know, you don't see it in the movie, obviously, but George runs up and goes to see
everyone
Duffy.
did, yeah.
Everyone's like, oh my gosh, we just killed somebody. Like, oh my gosh, this is really bad. And what does Duffy say, apparently?
Apparently he just looked at George and he's like, oh, you ruined the shot. Oh, he took his helmet off. And he's like, hey, thanks for ruining the shot. Because he didn't move. And everyone else rushed in.
But once again, this is other people saying that Duffy said that.
Yeah.
He might have said it more like, "You ruined the shot. Oh, gosh."
I think he said, "I need a shot." And then they just...
"I need a shot of morphine."
Yeah.
Yeah. So, maybe the studio was also not too happy about that because you see that in the dailies and you're like, what the heck are they doing?
Yeah, what are they doing down there on that film THX 1130? They got people flying off motorcycles.
Right. Because the production cost, and get this, it costs $777,777. That is all sevens. If you didn't fully catch that, that is all sevens. The first box office run, though, only brought in $955,000. Not all nines.
Do you think it was like originally 777,770, and then someone was just like, "I'll just get a cheeseburger on the company card just to make it." They were 1 7 off.
Yeah, they went to a supermarket and they were like, "All right, we got to buy everything and get exactly $7."
Right.
But that's in the studio eyes when it comes to that price difference. That's not the biggest earnings ever. I believe that still puts them in the red.
Yeah, they did not make money back off of this film. Well, at least the original release, I'll say.
But yeah, overall, this didn't cause George's career to crash and burn. So in the long run, it is a positive when it comes to that.
Speaking of crashing and burning, check this out. So,
no one flew out of the car.
No.
And he didn't crash right into the pole, and there was someone on the pole at the time.
No.
That seemed a little bit more safe.
A little safer. You didn't feel like you watched someone die, but is it hilarious? Yes. Because it's such a climactic.
Let me give you the chance to bring people up to speed as to what's happening in the movie, because Logan is going to explain to you what's happening in the movie that leads up to that crash. And that this will just kind of give you an idea of kind of how confusing the film is when you're watching it for reals.
So without getting too much into it, because this movie can get a little confusing. It's THX 1138, main character. He's on the run. He's breaking out of whatever they're in, and he comes across a hologram who's also on the run with him. They're escaping together.
A hologram is... never mind. Keep going.
Yeah, and then the hologram is the person driving in the car, and it's such
a lead up.
Yeah, they're trying to escape. That's basically it. THX is trying to escape. The hologram's escaping. I don't know what the commentary is on that, because it's just like, he gets in the car.
THX takes off normally.
Yeah, and then it's like, they have like the jet boosters firing up and all this. And I remember even saying, like, now how funny would it be if he just went straight into the wall?
You did. You said that when we were watching it, and then he went straight into a pole.
Wha-bam! Right into the pole. And it...
It's just, is this a commentary? You don't like self-driving cars? It's like, I'm not going to let a hologram drive my car.
Yeah, it's like,
drive it right into a pole.
That could be it, honestly. You know what I mean? That could have been like, don't ever let a hologram drive you around. I don't know if they thought that they were close to that technology in the 70s. I don't think we're still there, but
It was just an interesting thing, because as you saw with that scene, it's almost like if a drummer was doing a drum roll, right? And when he's about to hit the cymbal, he just throws his sticks at the audience. Like everyone's waiting. What's gonna happen? And then it's just like, oh gosh!
And then a grand piano just comes. It's like, what? Why?
He does this and he runs into a pole somehow.
Yeah.
Either way, like we can talk about this film and kind of joke around about it. But what are some things that we actually do like from the movie? I can definitely start it. We've looked into this, and a lot of people at the time, especially who were in the film industry, really did like it because it pushed the boundaries, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't run-of-the-mill. It had a lot of very interesting shots and played with interesting themes and everything. And as you see, it's inspired so many things. If you watch the movie, you'll be able to look at it and see what other movies and shows and whatnot have gleamed from THX 1138. So that's one of the main things that I like about it is kind of this time capsule of this is what an experimental movie looked like back then.
Yeah, I like the film. I want to get that out there too. I know when we covered it in the podcast, I said I like the film. I still like the film. There's weird parts. but there's weird parts to most films in the 70s and nowadays. So I don't let that distract too much. But I just like the fact that it is almost student film-esque. It's very experimental. And I know that that's kind of what you were getting at a little bit as well, but it's like there is that level of not spoon-feeding. And I know we make the joke there is no spoon.
Yeah.
You know, little Matrix reference. But it really is that, like, you feel like you have to connect some dots. And sometimes you connect the dots and they're super wrong, like the mind lock scene. You don't understand what's going on in the scene. Like, I think we didn't know what was going on until we looked up after. It was like, oh, the government locked his mind while he was at work.
And if you're hearing this for the first time, it's just as confusing, trust me.
Exactly. It's confusing when you watch it, but I do like that aspect of it. I also like the fact that you can see these little kernels, especially in the soundscape. You know, like there's some like, you know, it's like you can hear, oh, that kind of sounds a little Star Wars-y.
Yeah.
George Lucas talked about they use some of the sounds as music and some of the music as sounds. It's like, so you can tell. I think I like it because although it might not have been a grand success, you can tell that there was so much thought being put into it. Now, maybe thought was being put into the wrong things, and maybe thought was being put into this, but someone is sitting there trying to make you feel something. They're trying to get this, you know, it's not...
And put you into that space and make you go through an experience, not necessarily make you see a film. It felt more like art.
Yeah, it really was. And whether that confused people, which it still does, I'm sure, they're going to have negative things that go along with that.
Whether it's like beautiful art from Acme Archives Direct, or it's, you know, kind of more modern art where a shoe is nailed to a wall, that's kind of for you to decide. But I wanted to end in closing here with a review from William Moots back in the day when this film came out. He's from the Courier Journal in Louisville. He says, THX 1138 gives occasional inklings that George Lucas might someday turn out a good movie. THX, unfortunately, isn't it. But what a profound quote from William.
Yeah.
Who's a time traveler, we're having to guess. Because
100%.
This is like spot on, where like you were saying, and like even I was saying a little bit, where you see this and you see those little moments of genius that is going to then turn into Star Wars, Indiana Jones, etc.
Yeah.
Are you being mind-locked right now? Logan.
Help me. I'm mind-locked.
Okay, well, while Logan is mind-locked, because obviously the government is after him for his crimes, exciting news. We're going to be at Star Wars Celebration.
Ah, that was it! You just needed to say Star Wars Celebration.
And that's what broke it free? Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Locked. But we'll be at Star Wars Celebration this year, which is when we're shooting this in 2022 in Anaheim. We'll be doing some stuff with Acme Archives Direct, so be sure to follow us and them, especially on Instagram. We're going to be doing some videos, so look forward to that. Logan, how can people help support us?
You can watch another one of our videos after this.
Yeah.
But you could also head to our Patreon at patreon.com/Chatter Squadron.
Rise the ranks and get your name even right here underneath us. But yeah, if you don't know what you're going to watch after this movie wraps up, go ahead and check out one of our other videos, because that helps us and it shows the algorithm, the all-powerful algorithm that shuts off Logan's brain, that people like clicking onto our videos. So we appreciate that.
Also, I like that you referred to this as a movie.
This is a movie?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, it is. This has all been a movie.
This is a movie.
Yeah, we're gonna put all this together and it's gonna be Fun and Villainy the movie. Yeah.
So tune in for that and don't get mind locked.
Yeah, don't get mind locked and I don't know. I lost all my confidence.